Okay, well, welcome everyone. We've got Paul, we've got Murray in there. Let me just open up my little notes. There we go. I'll put this in full screen. Okay, so welcome to the first Elementor Australia now, not Elementor Sydney, Elementor Australia meetup this year. So thanks for joining us, Paul and Murray. And we do try and start on time, do a little bit of welcome introductions, what's new, and then today's topic, and finish with a Q&A. We try to finish by 7 o'clock, so you can all go away and have some dinner and do evening stuff. Let's introduce ourselves. My name is Will Brown. I'm one of the organisers for this meetup group. I also am one of the organisers for the WordPress Sydney meetup, and I am vice president for a second year for Linux Australia, which is represents all the open source communities and software in Australia. I'm a WordPress backend developer. I call myself a backend developer because I'm not really a front-end designer. I know a little bit of JavaScript, enough to be dangerous. But my forte is basically back-end WordPress. So I'm a developer. I basically hook up WordPress with other systems. So I tend to write the middleware that connects WordPress to other systems to pull data in and push data out to WordPress. I'll hand over to the other organisers. John, do you want to do a quick intro?
Yes, please. Thanks for that, Will. So yes, I'm the opposite end of things from Will. I am the designer, and I know almost nothing about code. So I just run my own company, and I build a lot of websites for clients. And I started using Elementor, must be about 3 or 4 years ago, and I won't use anything else now. And I kind of refuse to do jobs with any other page builder. Or if a client's been using a different page builder, I'll just kind of bin everything and start again with Elementor. Just from a design point of view, it does everything I want to do, and it's just become so easy to use, and it just works the same way as everything else I use, like Photoshop and Illustrator and everything. Yeah, so that's why we're here on the Elementor group, that I'm the designer here. I'll just pass over to Julia.
Yeah, sure. So hi everyone. I'm Julia, and I'm a web designer. I've been using WordPress and Elementor for a few years now. I own a small digital agency, web agency. We do web design and development, graphic design, and social media. I'm sticking to this group as much as I can, even if I'm up in the mountains now, but definitely interested in keep learning and keep sharing with you guys. So happy to be here.
Thank you, Julia. And Morris is hanging back there on silent. He's one of the organisers as well. Okay, we do have a code of conduct. Let me just copy the link address. I'll put it in the chat. Basically, it says respect each other, be transparent, have fun, and be respectful for that. So you can read that in your own time. This is being recorded, and we'll put the recording up on the Facebook and YouTube socials afterwards. Now, I'm not going to live stream tonight because it's too difficult. Keeping an eye on comments and stuff while live streaming and everything like that. So I'll hand it over to yourself, Paul and Murray. If you want to, you can do a quick introduction and let us know a little bit about yourself, what you do, and also what you're drinking. I've just got a boring old glass of water here tonight.
G'day. Yeah, well, I'm a Melbourne-based web designer developer. I come from a corporate background, about 20 years of working for big corporates as sysadmin. So I do a lot of code, a lot of script. I host my own websites on Amazon Web Services, do all the sysadmin. So I do a whole, end-to-end sort of solution from design all the way through to this back-end system and hosting. So we're currently managing about 20 sites, and all running with Elementor Pro, and quite a few are running WooCommerce, and it's been pretty fantastic, really.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Paul. Do you run Bitnami on Lightsail, or do you have a different stack?
No, I started with Bitnami, but I found a lot of problems with the update process. It run fine, but to update, you literally had to start again with a server, which I wasn't happy with as a quite competent sysadmin. 20 years experience. I'm quite happy getting dirty with code and script and stuff like that. So it just annoys me when things aren't up to date. So yeah, I've gone my own way, set up light sail services. They're easy to set, much easier to set up, just Ubuntu servers, and built my own stack basically. And so I've got scripts that automate everything and do all the updates and backups, and yeah, I'm pretty happy with how that goes.
Nice. I had a client today. They're a Bitnami light sale on Amazon, and long story short, their Let's Encrypt SSL didn't renew itself, and that the whole stack fell over just because of that. So we're like, what?
Yeah. The Bitnami's great. I like it. I use the XAMPP, whatever it is, for my local development. I think it's great, but the problem I found with it was it has no update process. The only way to update it was to build another server.
Yeah.
And yeah, that just sucks. But mind you, it was very quick and easy to get it going in the first place. So as a quick, just load this and get a WordPress stack going, yeah, it was great. But as a production thing, yeah, not so keen.
Okay, that's good to know. I'm going to pass some of that information on to my client. Anyone else?
If you want some info of how I built my stack and all the rest of it, I got full documentation for myself, so I'm happy to pass that on to anyone.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that, Paul. Anyone else like to introduce themselves? We've got Murray and we've got April.
I'm happy to jump in. It's interesting you say that, Paul, because I got dropped into AWS probably like about a year and a half ago, and they just went, go nuts. And I had to do everything myself and learn it all myself. And then I discovered Lightsail and Bitnami and everything. And then I hit okay, I need to upgrade this box, the PHP versions and that kind of thing. And everything was pointing at what you were saying. I'm going, no, it can't be this dumb. This is AWS. I mean, come on. They've got to have a better system in place. And surely enough, no matter what I looked for, I could not find a way. You had to build a new instance of Lightsail and port across everything or whatever just to upgrade. I went, no, I think I'll just go to manually building installs, because I prefer to build in PHP and all that kind of stuff and build it all from scratch anyway. But I just thought, oh yeah, AWS, click a button, you're good to go. Lightsail, wonderful, fast as anything. But yeah, anyway, I'm a coder. Started out with HTML in '97. Love my CSS, love code, love PHP, love MySQL and databases and geeky stuff. Love typography and color and shape and form and association. I used to teach multimedia and also teach web design to graphic designers, which I thought was pretty funny. Yeah, it's all good stuff. And I got involved with WordPress because I'd actually written my own content management system back in the early 10s. And it just got so hard to manage all the security and everything like that I just thought, yep, okay, WordPress looks pretty good. I'd had previous playing with Drupal and the other one, which I forget the name, that made it look like a Microsoft Word document with every website. And then I got interested in WordPress, wrote my own themes, did all the templating and everything like that, and then eventually discovered page builders. People were trying to sell me on Beaver Builder, and I was like, played with it, and I was like, no, it's a bit too simple. Then Divi came next, and then that was just like banging your head against a brick wall and trying to enjoy it. And then I discovered Elementor and went, wow, something that actually can grow with you, something that you can do either as little or as much as you want, and so I'm now looking at how I can integrate it with things like 3.js, GreenSock, D3.js, trying to get into 3D, full on 3D stuff, and looking at the REST API to get a lot of stuff in and out, and looking at a lot of API integration. So, but putting that all together with a lot of really good graphical stuff and that kind of thing. and Elementor is really good for that. It's open. I love the new. I love how they've really opened it up with Flexbox through the container, and also the what do you call it, the loop builder. And I believe that the mega menu is on the way, which will be kind of interesting. But yeah, all good.
Excellent. Thanks, Murray. April, would you like to unmute yourself, go on cam, and just introduce everyone?
Yeah, sure. See if I can. All right. Hi. Hello, everyone. I'm April. I'm actually a product manager, and I'm also a UX designer. The reason I wanted to join this event, well, I'm also new to Sydney and Australia as well, just moved here. The reason I'm interested in this event is because I have my own company. So we do website design and website development, also do app design and app development. We started in Hong Kong. We try to expand to other locations, Australia being one. So my developer have been using Elementor quite frequently when we design website. But me as a product manager actually know very little about it. But I heard this name more and more every day. And sometimes they tell me that they can't do something, sometimes they tell me they can do something, and then I got curious. So I wanted to figure out why I can't do something, why something takes so, and why certain website loads slow and stuff like that. And so that's the reason that I got curious when this event popped up, and I'm sure I will learn something. Very nice to meet everyone.
That's great. That's a fantastic. Welcome to Australia, by the way.
Thank you.
Okay, we start with some Elementor updates. There's not been a lot going on the past couple of months. So what I tried to do is try to split this up into the Elementor Free and Elementor Pro. If you want to look at yourself what changes are, those are the links on screen. I'll drop them into the meetup page after this, and I'll post them on the Facebook page as well. But you can go there anytime, and it tells you what's changed with the free version of Elementor, and it tells you what's changed with the pro version of Elementor in those two different places. I say not a lot's been happening, so it's just been a couple of point releases have recently been released, more over just sorting out the PHPX issues. So PHP 7.4 came to its end of life during December, and we really all should be heading over to PHP 8 if we haven't done so already. But I think the big plugins have been a bit slow to migrate over to PHP 8, and it's still causing some issues and kind of edge cases. Every now and often there'll be a error that'll pop up for that. So these 2 point releases are mainly just to fix PHP 8 errors for load. Nothing new has been introduced because 3.10 was like the big feature release for lots of goodies. We do have a new Facebook group. Well, it's an old Facebook group, but we're switched back to this one. It's called Elementor Lovers Australia. I'm not keen on the name. It wasn't me that named it, so I might rename it at some point. But that's where we'll be at the moment. That's where we'll post all the information and the video catch-up and all that sort of stuff. So you can head over to that later on and join there. One last thing. Elementor have published a roadmap, which is like a short-term vision board of what they are working on. You can see what's in planning, in progress, in beta, and what's been released in production. And you can also share some ideas. So if there's something that you think you'd like to see in Elementor, you can submit that, and that'll go straight to the developers stack as well, and they can have a look at that and vote up or down. But it's really good. I love this approach. Quite a few of the software that I use, it has some sort of roadmap, whether it's on their website, whether it's in Trello, that you can just kind of look at and just see what they're working on at the moment. So I think it's really good. It just gives you a short-term idea as to where it's going. If you ever had kind of doubts as to, what's coming up, well, there it's right in front of you for there. So pending, in progress, beta, and released. So have a look at that. Just continue to have a look at that. I'm going to try and look at it once a month to see exactly, what they're working on. Okay, so tonight's main topic is Elementor latest features roundup. So I thought I'd have a look at some of the latest stuff that's been included in Elementor, just so that you can start the year running. So you kind of got a good idea as to, the new stuff that's been released, so you can get started on that. Sorry about the graphic. I thought it was a good idea to put a little Lottie in there, but it is very distracting. So it's already making my eyes bleed. Okay, so the first one is Elementor Notes. Now, I know that Notes rolled out in May last year, so it's not exactly a latest feature, but a lot of the designers and developers I talked to recently in the forums, in the groups, in the Facebook groups, don't even know that this feature exists. So I thought I'd just highlight it here. And just talk a little bit about what it does. So what is Notes? It's basically a collaboration tool. So it allows you to click on different elements, different widgets within your post or page structure and just leave a little note on it. In fact, it goes more than that. You can have conversations in that as well. So it's very like Google Docs or Word Docs if you're doing a review, whereas you can leave a comment and then someone else can reply to that and you can mark it done or complete, stuff like that. So it's really good for that. So for giving yourself notes as well. So if you're designing a large site, if you've got a lot of stuff on and you're having to make decisions as to where something's going to go, you can drop a note on that. And then, you know, you're doing that page and then you come back a week later to it. Then you can remind yourself as to why you dropped that particular widget in there or why you made that decision for that particular structure. So you can use it to give yourself feedback. Because it's a two-way system, you can use it to gather client feedback as well. So if you've got a development or a staging site, you can then do all your designs in there. Then you can just drop little notes on the pages and then you can ask your client to go in, have a look and review all those sort of things. And you can have like a two-way conversation. The client might say, well, you know, this carousel is great, but, you know, I'm worried about page speed. How's this going to affect it? So things like that, you can have two-way conversations. Maybe a client comes back and says, actually, this thing kind of looks a bit sucky now. So I want to remove that in the next release. So I think that's its primary objective, is to kind of communicate between yourself and the client. But you can also use it for other project collaborators. So myself, I said I'm not really a UI design person. I would have somebody else come in and do maybe the PSDs or maybe do a bit of the front end JavaScript. With this sort of tool, you can then, you know, leave them comments. You can ask them for stuff as well, like a comment as to why you use that or how that's implemented a particular way. So you can leave comments with collaborators as well. So it doesn't have to be the client for that. So I think it's a great feature. When it rolled out, I was really excited. I've used it on all my projects so far, and the clients love it as well because they can go directly into design and have a look. Because majority of the times when I'm using Elementor, it's with sales and marketing teams. So they're building their own landing pages, their own sales pages from that. So, you know, they're right in the Elementor interface. So this is great to leave those little notes for them. These are just examples, some screenshots of notes in action. So you can see that a couple of notes have been left in there and a couple of interactions between the different people. And lastly as well, a little kind of GIF that just shows how simple it is. It's really simple to use. And click on the note, click on a widget, a little pop-up comes up, you type in your note, and that's it. There's a few of options as well. So additional options, when you hover over the note, you can mark it as unread. So if you've been going through something and you think something's important, you can mark it as unread for that. You can edit it as well. If you make a mistake, copy the link, and then that's a great tool to copy the link of the conversations. And then you can post that link directly to your client's email to say, hey, have a look at this particular issue if it's urgent, and things like that. So yeah, a nice little rounded communication system in there. It works really well with collaborating between your own team members and the client. And there's a little link down there to shows you a little bit more about the notes feature. Okay, why have these not got any?
Well,
yes.
Quick question about notes, because I've been using them, but the one thing that I found that was kind of a bit annoying was that every single note, if you noted 10 things for someone and then they went and did 10 things, you got 10 emails. So every single note was a separate email. Was there a way in which, because I actually raised it with Elementor and I said to them, guys, is there a way that you could sort of stagger, you know, notes being delivered, like don't send out more than one every X amount of minutes or something? Have they done anything like that, do you know of? Or is it just pretty much stock standard since?
Yeah, there's been no updates to it since. I know exactly what you mean. If you find the notes and you go crazy and you leave notes on everything, and then the client says stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it does currently just fire out an email for each one, which is a bit annoying. So yeah, but I'll give the developers feedback on that as well. So hopefully they can put some sort of system in place to stack that.
Cool.
There we go. So Flexbox. Flexbox containers, they've been around for a while now as an Elementor experiment, an alpha experiment. So they've remained in alpha for months and months and months until a couple of weeks ago. So alpha versions, they're highly unstable. You like to see big changes between alpha versions. So we're always told not to use the alpha versions on production environments. But now that the experiment has been moved to beta, we'd expect a smaller, subtler changes and improvements to be rolled out. In other words, it's almost pretty close to feature complete and ready for release. So what is Flexbox? It's probably one of the biggest changes that Elementor's been implementing over the past 6 months, hence why it's taken a long time. Flexbox takes a little bit of getting your head around the way it works. So Flexbox, it basically works on what we call 2 axes. So the main axis is the flex directions that items flow in. The cross axis is the perpendicular direction to the main axis. And basically, when you've got a container, when you set its direction, then all the components within that container flow in these directions. So the axis can be set to a row, or it can be set for horizontal stuff, or it can be set to a column if you want a vertical direction as well. So think about magazine and newspaper layouts when they've got the columns and stuff. Can you read left to right and up to down? That's easy to implement with this CSS Flexbox because the CSS behind it is doing all that movement for you. All you need to tell it is, the layout that you want, if it's horizontal or vertical, and the direction that you want the items to flow within the container. So this one here, the example, this is the horizontal, this is the row. So we can see that the main axis is going from left to right, or you can do it right to left as well. So that's the main flow of the elements. You just keep adding elements to that container, and that's the way they're going to flow. Once that container gets filled, so if you set a particular size, once that gets filled, then the direction, you can specify direction of the next element. So that can either be downwards or that can be upwards. So you can reverse the direction. So you could have this going from right to left and then upwards. It'd be a bit weird to do that, but you could do that. Or normally you just have, the left to right, and then you'd have it going downwards after that. But here's the up and down version as well. So if you have columns, and this, for example, you could use like a newspaper column. So just say you've got 3 vertical columns, then your main axis is up and down. So that's where items are going to be posted. They're going to start at the top and go down. But once it gets to the bottom, then the cross axis comes in. So you can imagine 3 columns, your posts are going to start at the top, the middle, the bottom, and then the 4th post is going to go to the middle column at the top, and then it's going to fill that way. So again, just like a magazine or a newspaper, we've got these kind of 2 axis ways. And now doing that content doing that content flow just with CSS and divs is very, very difficult because, they don't align properly and they're never the same height. So this CSS Flexbox is really, really good for doing this kind of directional content flow. Now, I could talk all day about CSS Flexbox, but I just don't have time to do a full tutorial. So there's a whole list of resources there. And again, I'll post all these links on the meetup page and on the Facebook and the YouTube comments as well. So you can have a look through those. And between those 8 links or something, then you become a Flexbox expert within a couple of days, guaranteed. So I should say something about Flexbox. Elementor's moving everything towards Flexboxes. So at the moment, it's sections and columns, and that's how you build Elementor. Everything's going to be moved eventually towards Flexbox. So by default, you'll be using containers, which are Flexbox enabled. Now, the sections and columns are still going to be there. So they're going to keep them going for a while, keep support going for a while. There's no end date yet. So your old stuff will still work. But what you'll find is when you enable the Flexbox, you should get a little conversion feature that allows you to convert your section and columns into Flexbox as well. So section and columns are not going away anytime soon, but you'll see this move over to Flexbox. And in fact, if you're a pro user and you have the template kits, they've already started migrating most of the template kits over to Flexbox. There we go. So sections versus containers. So Flexbox are single containers, where as sections rely on these columns inside the sections. The good thing about the containers is it requires less code in the back end to implement them. There's just the one container, whereas the sections have your outline section, then they've got the divs inside for all the different columns and stuff. So it ends up your data is kind of buried down quite a few levels when you're using sections, whereas containers, it's really kind of up close to the surface of the source code. As the Elementor's moving towards Flexbox as the main structure, so it's probably a good idea to start using containers, at least in your development stuff, just to get used to them for those. Okay, moving on. The next one is custom units. Now, previously, if you were adjusting paddings or margins or fonts, for example, you would have to choose the unit types, which can be pixel, EMs, relative EMs, which is rem, percentages, and in some instances you'd have VH, which is viewport horizontal, and VW, which is viewport width. All those, and you get to choose those, and they'll be in old. So that's the little image on the left hand side. There'll be a little row of them just at the top, and you just pick out which one. But that's kind of moved now. So now you actually click on a little icon, and you get a pop-up little box. So it's a new UI, and then you get to pick the particular unit that you want. And they've added a new unit. So this new unit is called a custom unit. For those, and it's the very, very bottom icon. It's the one with the little pen on it. It looks like a pen and a squiggle for those. So the old ones are still there, but you got this new one. And this new little unit, this custom unit, supports CSS Math Functions, which allows you to do kind of more complicated layouts. So rather than just setting a pixel width or a percentage, you can start calculating the width that you want, paddings and margins and font sizes based on something like maybe if you've got like a large screen. I've got a huge monitor here for that. So I run about 3,000, 4,000 pixels wide. So I could then scale up my font size and padding for those big monitors. And then I can scale it down to just, the mobile phone view for that using these calculations. So if you're unfamiliar with CSS Math Functions, there's only about five math functions in here. I've got a link down here at the bottom. I'll just drop it into the chat there, and that'll tell you the overview of the CSS Math Functions. But the first one is calc. So calc takes it takes multiple elements, but you can use addition, subtraction, division, or multiplication. And you can use units or CSS length units. So for example, pixels, you can use vertical height, vertical length, you can use rems, and you can basically just calculate something. So you could say, you could use something like, calculate the width of the viewport, and then, relative to the base font, and then work out how much your font is. This one here it's just changing the main div, and it's changing its height based on the 100% of its vertical height, minus 12 relative EMs. So it's just given a nice little border for that. The next one is clamp. Clamp is quite cool for responsive design, and the clamp function accepts 3 comma-separated expressions as its parameters. The first is a minimum value. The middle one is the target value that you want, and the larger one is the maximum value. Now, this is useful for calculating things like font sizes and margins when you're going from maybe mobile phone to tablet to large screens for those. So you can set the middle one as your ideal target, so that might be desktop. And then you can set the lowest value that they want it to go and the highest value you want it to go. What this means is if you're scaling, if someone's got a ridiculously huge monitor like I do, it means that your font isn't really, really tiny or absolutely humongous if you're scaling it in percentage wise. So if you're scaling things in percent, it's just going to grow and it's going to look stupid. And similarly, if you're going down on a mobile phone, you don't want the fonts to be so small that you just really can't see it. So clamp allows you to have a maximum height or maximum and a minimum that you want to go for, and then the ideal in the middle. So really good for responsive design. Similarly, you can use max. So you can all these functions here that you can use within the in the Elementor widget box now for these. So here one maximum, it just compares two numbers or multiple values, and then it returns the largest value. And similarly, minimum compares the smallest value, compares all the values and returns the smallest value. And this one here, the code here is using the max function. So we instruct the browser here to set the divs width to the largest value, which is going to be 90% of the view width, VW, on wider viewpoints. And on smaller zoomed in viewpoints, where 90 VW is the smaller value, we're jumping over to a pixel value for 460 because we don't want that to be too small. So we can use max, we can use min in those. So in this case, it's just doing the opposite of that. The last one is abs. So absolute. This one here, it just accepts one parameter and it returns an absolute value from something. Now, it's probably a bad example here. I just copied these examples off that URL here. But basically, what this is doing is it's taking the base font, which is set as 11px, and it's returning an absolute value of that. So 11px is already positive, so it's going to return a positive value. So abs just gets rid of the sign, basically. So if you've got a negative value, it's going to return the positive value for that. So probably not the best example here, but wrap abs around anything and you're guaranteed to get a positive value from that. And here's what you do. So here I'm editing a heading. I'm in the layouts here and the margins. And what I've got this little bit of CSS here, which has got clamp. So I've got 2.5% of the view width. That's the ideal that I want the margins to be on desktop. And then if I go to a really big screen, then I want that to be a maximum of 2 relative EMs as margins. And again, on smaller devices like my mobile, I want the minimum to be just a 1 relative EMs on the margin for that device, so it's not looking ridiculous. So you can use these CSS math functions within this custom units now. So I think that's lovely. I know a lot of people have complained that they don't want yet another thing that pops up, but each time they add new units, you can't really have enough going along the top. So I think that's an okay design issue there. Okay, next one is for GDPR people. If you weren't aware, maybe in October last year, maybe a little bit before, there was a German web design company that got in trouble with the GDPR rules. Basically, they had a website, or they had a client website that they developed, and it used Google Fonts on a CDN. And the CDN, the way it worked, it had to store the IP address of the web host, and that's a no-no for GDPR because that was in the US and they didn't state that. So if you don't want to get in trouble with hosting fonts, Elementor's now added this option here. So you go into the settings, then the advanced, scroll down, and you can enable or disable Google Fonts from loading through their CDN. So if you're doing European clients, that's probably a good thing to do. And then to complement that, Elementor has a locally hosted fonts option. So here you go into the main Elementor menu, and there's a little menu called custom fonts. And then you add a new one, which looks like this. You give it a name, and then you can set the weight and the style of that, and then you can load in all your different fonts that's supported from this. So WAF files, WAF2, TTF, FVG, and EOT, that's kind of all fallback files for those. And if you don't know how to generate those, just say you've got a TTF file and you don't know where the WAF or WAF2 is, or you don't even have a clue what those are, then you can get that from this little link here. So Font Scroll has a tool. You can just load up any type of these files and it'll generate the rest of those for you so you can load them in. Okay, so the next thing I was going to talk about is Lazyload on Google Maps. Now they say this is an update from Elementor 3.10, and that's just the text from their website. I went into the maps, I had a good look around the maps widget, I had a look at all the settings. I couldn't see any settings that told Elementor to Lazyload the Google Maps. So I am presuming that it's just done automatically on the frame for that, but I don't know for certain. So I'm checking with the developers on that, and I'll leave a link on the meetup page. to let you know how that is implemented. John has posted a question. Do you know if this is the best way to manage fonts? Is it better to keep the Google fonts running or self-hosted fonts? He's tried both, but the Google option ran faster. Yeah, I guess it's just a matter of testing, John. So I think the Google CDN is pretty fast. So again, you're going out for an external request. So it's going to be dependent on how many hops is going before you load in the fonts. The good thing about the fonts, if you load them locally, is that you are in control of them. And you're not loading anything else for that. And usually these font files are cached. So if you're running something through Cloudflare or a caching plugin, it's already been cached and they're just ready and waiting next time. Whereas with your Google CDN, you're going out to CDN pretty much each time. Well, not each time, but mostly. And it's an external request, so it just depends on how long that takes to reply, and that's going to affect your page speed. So it's a tricks and balances. It depends on which one.
Thanks,
Thumbs up.
Will.
Excellent.
Cheers.
Okay, coming towards the end. So the next one update is preload video and video meta. Now, when I've got an example here of the edit video. So I've dragged the video onto the page. And there's an option now down towards the bottom. And it says preload. And the preload has 3 options. So when the preload load is set to meta, only the length of the video is loaded in. So what that means is the web browser kind of knows roughly, how much to load in. So you're only loading the length of that. So it understands how much to load in. When the preload is set to auto, then the whole video can be preloaded, even if it's outside the viewport. So there might be some instances where you want to preload all the videos just so they're ready for people. So that could be a training website, for example. So you don't want people to scroll and then have to wait for 10 minutes for like a gigabyte video to download. So you could, if you want to preload all your videos so they're there instantly. The default is set to metadata, which just preloads the length and the width of and height of the video, so that the web browser contains or creates the container for it ready to load. Or you can set preload to none, and that just means when the web person's scrolling, then it kind of comes in. So you have a little bit more flexibility over how videos are loaded in with Elementor 3.10. I think this last one is a countdown timer. This one is Pro. So I'm not too sure if all these features are just in free or just in Pro, but this one is definitely in Pro. So the Elementor Pro countdown. This widget now supports a dynamic date from a custom field. Now, previously, if you were to drag in the countdown timer, you had a date field. You had to type the date into that page, and that was it, set in stone. So you need to go into Elementor each time to change that date, and it was completely static, unless you edit it again. But this time, this widget supports a dynamic date, and it grabs that from a custom field on your post. Now, to implement this, you need to go through a series of steps. The first step is to add a new custom field to your WordPress post. So this is outside of Elementor. This is when you create a new page or post. Well, probably talking about pages, a new page. So you go into the WordPress block editor, you type in the page title, and that's where you'd add the custom field. Now, sometimes in the block editor, custom field section at the bottom of the post editor isn't there by default. If it's not, then you go to the top right of the editor, those 3 vertical dots, click on that. It drops down the dialog box, click on preferences. Another dialog box comes up. You click on pixels and then toggle that little custom fields option there, and then save and reload the page. And then when you scroll down the page, you'll need to see this new meta box, which is the left-hand image called custom fields. And that allows you to add a new custom field, which is a name and a value. Now, this example here, I set a custom field called countdown-time. And I've added in a date, which is Christmas Day of this year. And the format needs to be very specific. So you need to have it in year, dash mm for month, and then dash dd for day, space, and then hour, colon, and then minute follows. I don't think it goes down to the second. I think it's just down to the minute. But once you've done that, make sure you save your page so that the custom field gets saved. So once you've gone through these steps here, then you can edit your page with Elementor. So on the left-hand side here, you can see there's the countdown widget here, and you've got your due date field, which has always been there, and it comes up with a today, or I think it's tomorrow as a default. But now you've got this little dynamic icon, and that's the little icon that looks like a stack of pancakes, somebody said at some point. So I'm kind of going to stick with that. So if you click on that, it then jumps to the middle dialog box. So this little drop down comes down. You then click on custom post custom field. Another little dialog box drops down. The UI is not so great, but then that allows you to select the key, which is a drop down menu, and from there you'll be able to see your custom field. And there's the one that I created, which is countdown-time. So select that one, and then you'll see that your countdown will refresh within the Elementor UI, and it'll be set to the countdown for that particular field. So it's 325 days to Christmas. If anyone wanted to know, the hours and minutes are not correct. But there you go. This is really useful, I think, because it allows marketing teams and automation to set countdown. For example, just think you might have a product sale coming up, or you might want to tie something for seasonal sales. So, you could have a plugin that switched your page to the next season that's coming, a date for the next season, and then it just sets a date in the custom field. And then, once that's set, then your page is just going to go from that particular timing. So a lot of things that you could do. This dynamic countdown timer, I quite like that. I think it's a great addition. A couple of last things is one is remove kit. Now, this is a really simple thing that they've added, a really, really tiny little thing, but it's got a huge implication. So if you've been playing around with the kit library, and the kit libraries are kind of preloaded industry pages. So there's maybe one for like a coffee roaster or plumber or electrician or hairdresser or beauty salon, things like that, and just gives you like a website template kit. So there'll be an about form, a home page, a contact page. There'll be some media files, some images, maybe some videos, maybe a contact form. All that stuff is bundled together. And once you click on a kit, it loads it into your Elementor website ready to go and edit. Problem is, if you change your mind, it was an absolute pain to get rid of all that stuff. You'd have to go in and delete all the pages, all the posts, all the stuff in the media, and try and kind of revert your site back to normal. This little change here, you go into your Elementor, into your tools, select the import export kit button, and right at the very bottom, it remembers the last kit that you installed, and you click on a button and it removes everything completely, which is just a game changer. Especially for people who are not developers, and they just want to install one of these pre-made kits. You can do that. You can play around with it. Maybe it's a good fit. Maybe it's not so much a good fit once you actually have a look at all the pages. You go back to here, click on this button. It just removes everything within 30 seconds or a minute. And then you can go and install a new one and start playing around. So I think this is really, really good for beginners, for novices, so people are really not experienced in kind of design and mucking around in WordPress and stuff. They can just jump from kit to kit, find one that's a 90% fit, and then just kind of change some things from those. So I think this is a really small feature, but I think it's a great addition for that. Okay, the last one here I'm going to talk about is nested stuff. It's called nested elements. Now, this is an experiment still. If you're not aware, Element runs these things called experiments, and you can get them from the Elementor settings. So these are things that they're testing. So if you remember back the little status board that they had about the things in progress, these are things that they think might be a good idea. You can switch on or inactivate. They're usually disabled by default. So you can switch them on and play around with them on your local development, on your staging development site, and just kind of figure out if it's something that you'd like to use or if it's useful for that. So this one here, they're going to bring out a whole suite of these nested elements. So things like nested loops, nested carousels. The first one they've implemented is the tabs. So this is a nested tabs experiment. And as such, you need to go into the settings and enable nested elements, but you also need to enable Flex Container. Now, the only way that this experiment works is through this Flexbox container. So you need those two enabled in order to run this particular thing. Okay, so here's just a quick example. What I've done here is I've got the tabs widget. I've dragged it onto my Elementor page here. And one of the little changes that's been thrown in with this experiment as well is now you can change the tab title, and you can also go icons as well. So in similar to lots of the buttons and lots of other things, you can now choose between a set of Elementor icons, or you can drop your own SVG icon in there. Right, gives it a nice touch, a nice little UI touch, visual touch for those. So I like that little thing there. But this is the main thing that you can do. So here, this is after like 3 minutes of playing around. I've created 3 tab content inside here. I have dragged, let me see, the one with the bell. That's actually a title element, and it's a Lottie image. And the title goes first, and then the image comes next. But I've reversed the flow of this. So now you've got the bell and the title. So it's kind of going from right to left. So that example. The hangry one here is just a bit of text, and then there's a Lottie animation. But again, I've centered them for those in the middle, horizontally and vertically for those, and changed their width a little bit so they're in the middle. And the soft kitty, that's just a single Lottie animation that's vertical centered in the middle for those. And this took me like 3 minutes. In fact, it took me longer looking for the Lottie files than it did to make this little tab. But it just shows you that the power of this layout that you can have. Now, I was going to jump in. So let me just do the next slide here. We'll do Q&A, but let me just stop sharing here, and I'll get rid of that at the moment. Switch over to a little demo, if it's going to work. Here we go, and share my screen again. And of course, right, there we go. Okay, so sorry if I'm looking the other way. Now here, if I go into pages, here we go, basic animations, edit with Elementor. Oh dear, that's terrible. That's the countdown. Let me go to a different one. There we go, nested tabs experiment. So this is the one that you saw in the little GIF that was animated. So here we can see the nested tabs experiment. We'll go in the navigator. We can see that we've got a container here. So that's a new Flexbox container. And then we've got the tab experiment within that. So the container allows the Flexbox stuff to work within the tabs. So I've just dropped a tab in here. And then each of the tabs here, you can see you can change the tab items. And there's the icon library that you can choose, or you can load up your own SVG for up here. So here's the bell one, hangry and soft kitty. For the bell, we can see here that we've got one heading, so one title heading, one Lottie animation. And you notice the order, we've got the heading first, and then we've got the Lottie. So technically we should see the heading, please ring the bell, and then the Lottie. But if we have a look at the container, the tab, this is where the Flexbox stuff. So this is Flexbox in here. So Flexbox direction. I'm actually saying I want this row to be reversed. So it's normally would be this one, horizontal, but I can then change that easily, which you can't really do very well with sections and columns. You need to go into things like floats. And when you float stuff, it just gets a bit of a mess. So I've got the reversed order here. I've justified the content here. Normally it would be start like that, but I've centered it here, but you can have things that you can align it the other way. You can have a space between them. You can bring them close together for that, or center them. And align items as well, I can put them towards the top. I can align them both in the middle. I can put them on the bottom, or I can have them, up and top, at either sides, top and bottom. So center these. And you can change the gap between them as well. Really, really easy. And this is the wrapping. So you can say, I don't want things to wrap if that section shrinks, or I want them to wrap when that section shrinks down for that. So those are the basic Flexbox stuff. So really, really easy. So that one there, I've reversed the direction. This one here, you can see from the Navigator tab 2. We've got the text editor, which is this one. And then we've got the Lottie animation. So I've not done anything with the tab other than maybe to center it. Yeah, so I justified it. So that'd be the default from left-hand side. I've just changed the justify so it gets it all in the center. And then the soft kitty one here is just a simple Lottie that's been set in. And the only thing I've done with the Flexbox is just again to justify that sort of thing. So really, really easy to start to control, you know, the flow of your items within this stuff. But yeah, nested content, really, really great. I'm loving that. So I think the next one that's going to be released is the which one? The carousel, I believe, is the one they are working on at the moment. So that's it. I wanted to do a little bit of a quick demo at the end, just so you could see something actually working in Elementor. For those, if you guys got any questions, then please let me know in the chat, or just unmute yourself and ask me a question, and I'll try my very best to answer. And it's okay if you don't have questions too. That's equally as good. It means I don't have to answer. Nothing coming through? All good. April, do you have any questions? No.
Oh, sorry, I'm on mute. No, I'm good.
All
Actually,
good.
I learned a lot. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thanks for the feedback. Next month, I'm going to talk about optimizing image and video content, or maybe not just me. I might get Morris. I think he was quite interested in doing that one as well. But it's on March the 2nd. So this is the first Thursday of every month that we're going to be doing the Elementor meetups online, 6 p.m. Sydney time. Always 6 p.m. Doesn't matter if it's EST or ADT. We're trying to do it at 6. So optimizing image and video content. So we're stepping away a little bit from Elementor and maybe start talking about more optimization. So we're think about page speed, image sizes, quality, and stuff like that. So we'll go through images, how to optimize images, and then we'll go through how to optimize video as well for the best display within that. So thank you very much. If you don't get any questions, thanks Paul, April, and Murray for joining us. Hopefully see you next week, next month even. Yeah, so thank you very much and take care. Have a great evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you are.
Thank you, Will.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you very much.